You know what's unsettling? While millions of people are striving for that perfect, monogamous, happily ever after, there's this entire shadow population who genuinely cannot function that way. And I'm not talking about people who make one drunk mistake and spend the next decade regretting it. I mean the folks who see the concept of one person forever the same way you might see, I don't know, wearing the same shirt every day for 50 years. Just complete claustrophobia. And here's what people miss. For some folks, the promise of commitment just doesn't register as safety at all. So, let's get into it. First thing you need to understand is that monogamy isn't some default human setting. The brain doesn't pop out of the womb programmed to only find one single person attractive for the rest of its existence. What's actually happening when people stay faithful is this whole tangled mess of oxytocin bonding, social conditioning, and a conscious decision to override impulses. And there's actually a term for the opposite urge, the Coolidge Effect. Basically, your brain can give you a massive dopamine hit solely because a partner is new, even if they aren't better than what you have. For people who frequently cheat, resisting that biological pull is like, okay, sure, but why would I ignore a chemical signal that feels this good? There's actually some interesting research here from evolutionary psychology that found people have wildly different baselines for sensation seeking. Some brains crave high-intensity, risky experiences to feel anything at all, while others find that same risk genuinely terrifying. Neither is broken, they're just different thresholds. So when someone serial cheats, they might not be trying to be malicious or cruel. They might just be someone whose nervous system requires a level of thrill and novelty that a stable relationship cannot provide. The comfort and predictability of a Friday night on the couch with the same person genuinely might feel like a slow death rather than peace. And here's where it gets psychologically dense. Humans are validation-seeking by nature, right? We survived as a species because we were valued by the group. Cheating taps into that primal need to be desired. I know that sounds like an excuse, but the emotional response to "someone new wants me" follows a lot of the same patterns as early survival instincts. But not everyone experiences that void with equal intensity. Some people might get their sense of worth from their career or skills, or literally anything that doesn't involve constantly seducing strangers.
They're not rejecting desire itself, they've just found their confidence elsewhere, in spaces that don't require them to betray their partner's trust to feel alive. Now, let's talk about something that might explain part of the disconnect: attachment styles. There's this concept in psychology where people develop secure, anxious, or avoidant attachment. Basically, do you see intimacy as a safe harbor, or is deep emotional closeness actually the thing you're running from? Think about what happens when you cheat. You're creating distance. You're ensuring that no one person has 100% of you. You're keeping a secret that acts as a wall. Some people are subconsciously doing this on purpose. The affair isn't the point, the distance is the point. Others might find that fundamentally baffling. They'd rather spend emotional energy building a deeper connection with one person. Neither emotional need is wrong in a vacuum, but one is destructive here. Oh, and let's not forget the elephant in the room, the paradox of choice. Seriously, nobody ever talks about how modern life feels like walking into a buffet that never closes, with dating apps, DMs, and a culture that constantly whispers, "You could do better." For a lot of folks, cheating is just a symptom of the inability to ever feel satisfied with what they have. Like, is this it? Especially for people who are wired with high levels of neuroticism, which keeps them constantly looking for the next thing. For them, a long-term relationship is basically a mirror showing them their own boredom, and they can't handle looking at it. The routine, the flaws, the reality. What's comfort for some is a reality check that others are desperate to escape. And here's another thing. Nobody really talks about how much people vary when it comes to impulse control. There's research showing that the prefrontal cortex functions differently in everyone.
Relationships are fundamentally about impulse management. You will be attracted to other people, and that's supposed to be normal. But for people with lower impulse control, that passing attraction feels like an imperative command. They're not weighing consequences, they're just reacting the entire time. And when you combine that with the fact that the thrill of the chase is often more potent than the catch itself, destroying a marriage for 20 minutes of validation starts to look like a compulsion. It's the same reason some people can gamble once and walk away, and others lose the house. Different nervous systems have different brakes, even when the car is heading off a cliff. And then there's this big deal everyone makes about morality and character. Cheating isn't just a behavior anymore.
It's this massive moral failing that defines your entire identity. If monogamy doesn't really work for you, all that societal pressure just makes the secrecy deeper. It's like being surrounded by people pretending that looking at the menu is a crime and you're the only one starving. It feels kind of fake, honestly. You end up watching everyone else play house while you feel totally disconnected from the rules. And that weird disconnect can leave you feeling like a monster. It's not just guilt, it's kind of isolating in a way that's hard to admit. But let's be real about something else. Sometimes there's no deep childhood trauma. Sometimes people just don't care about others the same way some people are greedy or lazy. We've become so obsessed with pathologizing every bad behavior that we forget, humans are capable of just being selfish. Shocking, I know. The person who cheats frequently might just prioritize their own pleasure over your pain. And that preference doesn't need a neurological justification. The expectation that everyone is capable of selfless love is honestly weirder than the cheating. What I find most interesting is how aggressive the reaction is when we try to analyze cheaters. There's this immediate defensiveness, like you're trying to justify the behavior. And that reaction tells you everything about how monogamy functions as a pillar of stability. When you try to understand the cheater, some people hear it as you excusing the pain they caused. It's not actually about the psychology. It's about fear, betrayal, and the terrifying realization that you can never truly know another person. So, if you're someone who finds themselves cheating over and over, there's probably a mix of factors at play. Maybe your sensation-seeking runs high. Maybe you rely on external validation to feel worthy. Maybe you're just terrified of true intimacy and use affairs as a shield. Maybe you lack impulse control. Or maybe you just genuinely don't value monogamy and haven't been honest enough to admit it. All of those are explanations, not excuses. And if you're someone who has been cheated on, your pain is valid regardless of their why. We don't all have the same capacity for loyalty. And honestly, accepting that is probably the only way to protect yourself. You can have millions of people who view a promise as a sacred bond, while another group views it as a suggestion. And somehow, we all date each other. That's it. That's the whole mess. If this hit home for you, don't forget to subscribe. And if you want to support these deep dives, hit that join button to become a channel member. I would genuinely appreciate it.